When people hear the phrase, "open your third eye," they expect something dramatic, almost like a light switch turning on or a sudden explosion of visions. But the truth is, it rarely happens like that. It begins with something far simpler, something we often overlook because it feels too ordinary: stillness. And I want you to think about this for a second. When was the last time you allowed yourself to be still, truly still, without reaching for your phone, without music playing in the background, without planning the next thing you have to do? We've trained ourselves to equate stillness with being unproductive, when in reality, it's the exact opposite. Stillness is the very soil where awareness grows. Your third eye isn't some faraway, mystical concept reserved for gurus or monks on mountaintops. It's within you right now, waiting for a chance to be heard. But here's the thing: if your mind is constantly racing, if you're always distracted or rushing from one thought to the next, there's no space for that higher level of perception to surface. It's like trying to see your reflection in water while throwing rocks into it. The ripples distort everything. Only when the water is calm can you truly see what's there. Think about your own life for a moment. How often do you silence the noise in your head? How often do you let yourself just breathe and be? For most of us, the answer is rarely, if ever. We've created a culture where every second of silence has to be filled. Scrolling through feeds, answering emails, listening to podcasts. And while none of these things are bad on their own, together they drown out the very voice that's been trying to guide you from within. The voice of intuition, the voice of clarity, the voice of your third eye. The first step to activating that part of you is choosing stillness on purpose. It doesn't have to be complicated or mystical. It can start with just 5 minutes of silence each morning. Sit down, close your eyes, and let the world fade away for a moment. Don't try to force anything. Don't expect flashes of insight right away. Just breathe. Notice the inhale. Notice the exhale. Let the thoughts come and let them go without chasing them. That's how you begin opening the doorway. Some of you may already be thinking, "I can't meditate. My mind won't stop running." And that's exactly the point. It's not about shutting off your mind. It's about observing it without judgment. Over time, that frantic energy starts to slow down. You begin to notice patterns, emotions, even truths you've been ignoring. And that's when the third eye begins to wake up, not with fireworks, but with subtle clarity that grows stronger the more space you create. And here's something powerful: stillness doesn't just happen in meditation. It can be found in everyday moments if you choose to practice it. Standing in the shower without rushing, sitting in your car before turning the key, walking outside without headphones, just listening to the world around you. These are opportunities for presence, and every time you embrace them, you are training your mind to find stillness, to recognize awareness, and to prepare the ground for deeper perception. We all want answers, guidance, direction, but answers don't come from chaos. They come from silence. Imagine trying to listen to a whisper in the middle of a rock concert. You wouldn't hear it, not because the whisper isn't there, but because the noise is too loud. The third eye is that whisper. It's always been there. The only question is, will you quiet down enough to listen? The journey doesn't start with big, dramatic awakenings. It starts with stillness. Because when you create that space, you open the doorway for awareness. And once that awareness enters, everything in your life begins to shift. That's how you begin. That's how you activate the very first step. You said expand key point 2 into a 600-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact and don't mention Jefferson Fisher, name and write it like Jefferson Fisher. Is giving speech ChatGPT said, one of the biggest reasons people struggle to open their third eye isn't because they don't have the ability, it's because their vision is clouded, and not in some spiritual, abstract sense, clouded by distractions. Think about it. From the moment you wake up, your mind is already under attack. Notifications, emails, endless feeds, news cycles, other people's opinions, all competing for your attention. It's no wonder we feel disconnected from ourselves. The third eye doesn't thrive in noise. It thrives in clarity. And if your life is filled with distractions, you're building walls between yourself and your own higher awareness. The truth is, distraction has become the new normal. We've been trained to think it's okay to jump from one thing to another without ever giving ourselves the space to think deeply. And yet, when you're constantly distracted, you're not actually living, you're just reacting. The third eye cannot open in a mind that is busy reacting all the time. It needs clarity, it needs space, it needs you to detox from everything that keeps you stuck in surface-level thinking. Now, when I say detox, I don't mean you have to move to a cabin in the woods and live off the grid. That's not realistic for most of us. What I mean is becoming intentional about what you allow into your mind and your energy. Look at the content you consume every day. Is it feeding you or is it draining you? Are you scrolling for hours on things that make you compare your life to others? Are you surrounding yourself with negativity, whether it's through the media, toxic people, or even your own inner dialogue? Because every piece of negativity you let in adds another layer of fog over your vision. And here's the key. You always have a choice. You don't have to consume everything that's thrown at you. You can choose what you watch, who you spend time with, what kind of conversations you engage in. Every time you choose clarity over clutter, you're clearing space for your third eye to open. You're telling yourself, I value my awareness more than I value noise. That's where the shift begins. It's not just about cutting things out, though. It's also about replacing them with better input. When you read something uplifting, when you spend time in nature, when you have conversations that feed your soul instead of drain it, you're not just passing time, you're strengthening your inner clarity. And the more clarity you cultivate, the easier it becomes to hear your intuition, to sense truth, and to feel that deeper connection within. A lot of people want the benefits of an open third eye, but don't want to do the work of clearing their lives of distractions. And it's like this. You can't expect to see clearly through a window that's covered in dirt. You can press your face against it. You can squint. You can try all you want. But until you clean the glass, you'll never truly see what's on the other side. That's what distractions are. They're dirt on the glass. And until you're willing to wipe them away, your vision will always stay blurred. The beauty is, once you start cutting out what doesn't serve you, you begin to notice how much lighter you feel. Suddenly, silence doesn't feel so intimidating anymore. Clarity feels natural, and that's when you start to realize the world hasn't changed, you've changed, your perspective is sharper, your intuition is louder, and your third eye has the space it needs to come alive. Because the truth is, you can't step into higher awareness while carrying the weight of constant distractions. To awaken what's within you, you have to choose clarity over clutter. That's the real detox. You said, expand key point 3 into a 600-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact and don't mention Jefferson Fisher, name and write it like Jefferson Fisher, is giving speech. ChatGPT said, when people hear about the third eye, they often imagine it as some magical doorway that suddenly unlocks hidden powers. But what they don't realize is that the third eye is already speaking to them. It's just that most of us don't listen. That quiet nudge in your gut, that subtle feeling when you know something is off, or when you sense you should take a certain path even if it doesn't make logical sense, that's your intuition. And here's the truth, opening your third eye isn't about creating something new, it's about strengthening what's already there. We've been taught to trust logic above all else, to only believe what can be proven, calculated, or explained. And logic is valuable, but it's not the whole picture. Think about the times when logic said one thing, but your gut said another, and your gut turned out to be right. That's not coincidence. That's the quiet guidance of your intuition. And when you learn to practice it, test it, and trust it, you're exercising the very muscle of your third eye. The problem is, most of us ignore those inner signals. We dismiss them as imagination, or we guess them because they don't align with what's reasonable. But the third eye doesn't speak in reason. It speaks in clarity, and the more you honor those small nudges, the louder and clearer they become. It's just like training any other ability. You wouldn't expect to be strong without lifting weights, and you can't expect your intuition to sharpen if you never use it. So how do you practice it? You start small. Maybe you get a feeling about calling someone out of the blue. Do it. Maybe something inside you says, take a different route home. Try it. Pay attention to the results. The more you notice that your intuition is guiding you correctly, the more trust you'll build in it. And that trust is what opens the door wider and wider to your third eye awareness. And let's be honest, sometimes intuition doesn't lead to instant gratification. Sometimes it leads you through a lesson. Maybe it nudges you towards something that challenges you or stretches you, but even in those moments, it's always for your growth, because intuition isn't about making life easier, it's about making life clearer. And clarity is the very essence of the third eye. What you'll also find is that when you practice trusting those inner whispers, you begin to quiet the need for external validation. You stop seeking constant approval because you start realizing you already have guidance within you. And that's a freedom most people never experience. The freedom of knowing you're guided, even when no one else understands your choices. But let me tell you something important. Trusting your intuition doesn't mean ignoring logic. It doesn't mean throwing reason out the window. It means learning to let them work together. Logic gives you structure, but intuition gives you direction. Logic can help you build the plan, but intuition tells you if it's the right plan in the first place. When you combine both, you stop stumbling blindly and start walking with purpose. Every time you act on intuition, no matter how small, you're strengthening the link between your conscious mind and your higher awareness. That's what the third eye really is. It's the bridge between what you see in the physical and what you sense in the unseen. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. So don't wait for a lightning bolt moment. Don't wait for the skies to part and for visions to appear. Start with the whispers. Start with the subtle nudges, because that's where your third eye begins to open, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet trust of your own inner knowing. You said expand key point 4 into a 600-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact and don't mention Jefferson Fisher. Name and write it like Jefferson Fisher is giving speech. ChatGPT said, when you begin to open your third eye, something shifts inside you. It's not just about seeing more, it's about becoming more. And what I mean by that is simple. You stop living from a place of constant survival, and you start aligning with your higher self. Most of us go through life on autopilot, reacting to whatever happens, letting our emotions, stress, or circumstances dictate how we feel and what we do. But when your third eye begins to open, you rise above that. You start to sense that you're more than just your thoughts, more than your fears, more than your daily struggles. You start to recognize there's a higher version of you that has always been there, waiting to guide you. That higher self is the voice of wisdom within you. It's the part of you that doesn't get lost in drama, that doesn't cling to things that don't matter, that sees beyond temporary problems. When you align with it, you're not just reacting to life anymore. You're responding with clarity. And that's the difference. Reaction comes from fear, from insecurity, from confusion. Response comes from vision, from strength, from awareness. But here's the catch. You can't align with your higher self if you're constantly looking outside for direction. You can't expect your purpose to come from other people's approval, or your worth to be measured by the world's standards. The higher self doesn't speak in likes, or status, or material success. It speaks in truth. And that truth often whispers things that go against what the crowd says. That's why opening your third eye requires courage. It asks you to trust that inner compass, even when it doesn't match what everyone else around you is doing. Think about the times in your life when you felt truly connected, when you knew deep down that you were in alignment with something bigger than yourself. Maybe it was a decision that made no sense on paper, but felt right in your soul. Maybe it was walking away from something comfortable because you knew you deserved more. That wasn't luck, and it wasn't coincidence. That was your higher self guiding you. And the more your third eye opens, the more those moments become the norm instead of rare exceptions. What's powerful is that this alignment doesn't just affect how you see yourself. It affects how you see others too. When you're connected to your higher self, judgment fades. You stop viewing people through the lens of jealousy or competition, and instead, you see them with compassion and understanding. You recognize that everyone is on their own journey, and that energy of clarity changes how you interact with the world. You begin to live in flow, not in conflict. And I'll tell you something else. When you align with your higher self, life begins to feel lighter. Not because challenges disappear, but because you stop carrying them with the same heaviness. You realize that struggles are temporary, but your awareness is permanent. You stop seeing obstacles as walls and start seeing them as lessons. And that shift in perspective is one of the clearest signs that your third eye is active. You're no longer just living through the day, you're living through purpose. That's what alignment really is. It's when your choices, your thoughts, and your energy start to match who you truly are at the deepest level. And once that happens, you can never go back to living the same way again. Because when you align with your higher self, you don't just see life differently, you live it differently. You said, expand key point 5 into a 600-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact and don't mention. Jefferson Fisher, name and write it like Jefferson Fisher. Is giving speech ChatGPT said, one of the reasons many people never fully experience the opening of their third eye is because deep down, they're afraid of what they'll see. And I don't just mean visions or spiritual insights. I'm talking about what they'll discover about themselves. Because when your awareness expands, you can't hide from the truth anymore. The illusions you've been holding on to, the stories you've been telling yourself, the habits and patterns you've been ignoring, they all rise to the surface. And for a lot of people, that feels scary. It feels easier to stay comfortable in the fog than to face the clarity that the third eye brings. But here's the reality. Clarity doesn't come to punish you. It comes to free you. When you open your third eye, you're not uncovering some dark secret about yourself that you can't handle. You're uncovering the truth that you've been carrying all along, and truth always leads to freedom. Think about it. Isn't it more exhausting to keep pretending, to keep running from what you already feel inside, than it is to finally face it? The fear is never in the truth. It's in the anticipation of the truth. Once you face it, the fear loses its power. The third eye shows you what's real. And sometimes, yes, that means seeing parts of yourself you'd rather not acknowledge. Maybe it's the fact that you've been settling in relationships. Maybe it's realizing you've been holding yourself back because of fear. Maybe it's confronting the ways you've been numbing your emotions instead of dealing with them. That's not easy to face. But when you do, when you look directly at it, that's when you grow. Because you can't heal what you refuse to see. You can't rise above patterns you won't admit you have, And this is why opening the third eye requires courage. It asks you to stop running, stop distracting, stop covering things up, and instead to finally stand face to face with yourself. That moment can feel overwhelming, but it's also the most powerful moment of your life. Because on the other side of fear is freedom. On the other side of discomfort is clarity. And I want you to understand something important. Opening your third eye doesn't mean escaping reality or becoming disconnected from the world. It's the exact opposite. It means you engage with reality more fully than ever before. You see life as it is, not as you wish it to be or as you fear it to be. You stop clinging to illusions that weigh you down. You stop living half awake, and the truth that once felt scary becomes the very thing that liberates you. Most people are afraid of clarity because they think it will expose them, but in reality, it reveals them. It reveals the strength they forgot they had, the wisdom they didn't know they carried, the direction they've been searching for all along. It doesn't take anything away from you. It gives you everything you need to step into who you really are. So if you find yourself hesitating, if you feel that fear rise up when you start to look inward, remember this. What you're afraid to face is usually the very thing that's keeping you stuck. And the moment you're willing to look at it with open eyes, it loses its grip on you. Because the third eye doesn't just show you what's uncomfortable, it shows you what's possible. You said, expand key point 6 into a 600-word segment, flowing naturally within the speech and maintaining alignment with the overall key points. Avoid any headings and ensure the tone is seamless and conversational. Conclude with only the necessary closing line for impact and don't mention Jefferson Fisher, name and write it like Jefferson Fisher, is giving speech chat GPT said, opening your third eye isn't the final step, it's just the beginning. The real work is learning how to live with it open, because anyone can have a moment of awareness, a flash of clarity, or a deep realization. But if you don't carry it into your daily life, it fades. Living with an open third eye means practicing presence, grounding yourself, and letting that higher awareness shape the way you move through the world. It's about shifting from moments of clarity to a lifestyle of clarity. When you live this way, you start noticing how differently you respond to things. Instead of reacting instantly out of anger, stress, or fear, you create space between what happens and how you choose to handle it. That space, that pause is where wisdom enters, and it's in that space where you stop repeating old patterns and start making choices that align with your higher self. The third eye doesn't take away your struggles, but it changes how you walk through them. Suddenly, situations that once triggered you don't hold the same power because you're seeing them from a higher perspective. Living with your third eye open also means being intentional about presence. So many people spend their days either stuck in the past, replaying regrets, or trapped in the future, worrying about what might happen. But awareness pulls you into the now, and the now is the only place where life is actually happening. When you're fully present, you start experiencing things more deeply. Conversations feel richer, moments feel fuller, even the smallest details in your day carry meaning. That's not coincidence. That's the vision of the third eye bringing you back to what's real. But it also requires grounding, because with awareness, it's easy to drift off, to get caught up in searching for signs or chasing spiritual highs. That's not what this is about. Grounding yourself means staying connected to both worlds, the spiritual and the physical. It means, yes, you're seeing beyond appearances, but you're also rooted enough to live and act in the real world. The third eye isn't meant to take you away from life. It's meant to help you live life with more depth, more clarity, more purpose. And when you live with it open, you start noticing that your choices change. The people you spend time with, the energy you allow around you, the way you care for yourself, it all begins to align differently. You become less interested in chasing things that drain you and more focused on things that build you. That's not because you're forcing yourself to be disciplined. It's because awareness naturally pulls you toward what's real and away from what's fake. Here's the beauty of it. When your third eye is active in your daily life, you stop seeing yourself as separate from everything else. You begin to feel more connected, more in tune with others, more aware of how your energy impacts the world around you. Compassion grows, judgment fades, life starts to feel less like a series of problems and more like a series of lessons. And that change isn't just in how you think, it's in how you live. Because in the end, the goal isn't just to open your third eye once. The goal is to keep it open, to let it guide you in the small decisions, the big choices, and everything in between. And when you live that way, life doesn't just look different, it feels different. Because living with your third eye open means you stop just existing and finally start awakening.